Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. By the time of this recording, the 250th YCS has already concluded in all three regions, in Bogota, Colombia, in Los Angeles, California, and in London in the UK. A lot of things happened. I guess we should talk about what won each event because it's kind of important to like grasp that before like tackling like a lot of other things involving this current TCG format. In the London YCS, which was the first one that concluded, the winner played Melfi Sprite. Melfi Sprite was the winner. The finals was Melfi Sprite versus Kashtira. And one card that was very significant towards the Sprite player's success was Kurikara Divine Incarnate. They played against Kashtira. The Kashtira tried to do the zone lock combo, and when the Sprite player's turn arrived, they pretty much abated a Rise Heart's effect, which prompted them to summon Divine Incarnate, and then they summoned multiples of these, and you guys can find the finals. I'm pretty much explaining it a little bit cookie cutter. But yeah, that's what happened in London. Both Bogota and LA was won by Kashtira. And funnily enough, the finals were both of them played against Naturia Runic. So that kind of tells you like how powerful Runic is. Something else to note is Runic also made it to top 4. It was not the Naturia variant, it was the variant playing Fur Hires in combination with Sprite. Another thing to note is not only one but two different Runic decks topped LA. Somebody mixed Runic with Kashtira. Shoutouts to Chuping. So things to bring up. I think it's kind of clear, just not only watching the victories but watching the top card representations and the numbers. Kashtira is pretty much still the deck to beat in this format. I think that what is imperative to Kashtira's success is how many different avenues can the deck pull off and play, despite how many interruptions and how many things are to counter it. You can play around the zone lock, or you can play around a Rise Heart pass, but it's always a toss-up what each player wants to do with the deck, and just because you know a deck is doing well doesn't mean that you know what each player is going to be doing with that strategy. So yeah, Kashtira kind of proved its success. It kind of proved its power. It proved that it's pretty much like the deck to beat in this format. It made it to the finals of all three events. So yeah, that's it for Kashtira. I want to talk about Runic for a minute. As I already mentioned beforehand, Runic made it to the finals of each event except for London, but it made it to top 4 in London. So Runic is pretty much the best engine in the game for a deck that's not Kashtira, which is ironic for me to say because again, shoutouts to Chuping, he also played it alongside Kashtira. So it kind of shows you how really powerful this engine is, how really powerful, like how Runic Fountain is, like the power of recursion. It kind of shows you that honestly you don't care about your battle phase, as long as you're out resourcing your opponent. There are many different varieties to this. There are many ways for you to play like Runics in general. So yeah, this event had kind of showed you how powerful Runic is as an engine, and until we get a list that actually addresses this, we're probably going to see this engine around like a lot more. I don't think this engine will be power crept in Cyberstorm Access. If anything, I think it will be paired alongside it, alongside what things do well with it. So yeah, that's it for Runic. So yeah, pretty much if you're playing this format, you need to look out for Kashtira and you need to look out for Runic engines. Those are two really big things that you need to look out when it comes to this format. I want to talk. I guess we can talk about Sprite. The fact that Sprite won London. Take note that it also won Peru earlier. Kind of tells you that Sprite is still a really powerful contender despite the significant hit with Sprite Elf being in the Forbidden list. I think this is not going to change. I think post Cyberstorm Access, Sprite is going to be as strong because there will be an engine that will be paired with Sprite, or Sprite will be played as an engine for that particular strategy in the future. So yeah, I think we're going to keep seeing Sprite until we actually see a list that addresses it. So yeah, this deck should not be slept upon. I faced against this deck a lot this format, so I can tell you right now that strength and the power of this deck is very warranted. Those are like the three biggest things I wanted to speak when it was like taking away the format. These are not these are not the best three strategies like verbatim. You can say that they are kind of warranted at a power level of many other strategies. However, these are the three that are the most potent. And don't be surprised if you see like any of these three or any mix of any of these three like during the rest of this format. I want to talk about Labyrinth and I want to talk about Branded for a second. This event was the lowest significant showing out of this strategy or these two strategies. I don't think these decks are bad by any means. I don't think these decks are not like their strength are not warranted by any means. A lot of people will agree that Branded Fusion is the most powerful card in the game if it resolves. However, it is one of the most targeted cards if it resolves, for people to stop it from resolving. And the fact that this strategy is very respected means that a lot of people kind of made it so it had a target on its back. But yeah, like the fact that we have a card in the game, like I'll talk about Branded Expulsion. The fact that we have a card in the game that warrants people to obligatory like main or side for it makes the format kind of awkward because a lot of decks are viable, a lot of decks are fair. This is a very open format, but you do have cards in the game that kinda makes it so your opponent is forced to side deck against certain strategies, which means they won't be able to side as much for other strategies as well. And Branded is one of them. Like I still believe that Branded is very powerful as a deck. I think that Branded is on par with like these three contenders that made it to the finals of each event. However, people were more prepared for them, meaning that they were more targeted, which means that they didn't do as well as those other aforementioned decks. I think the same goes for Labyrinth. I think like if you have a deck in the game that plays Floodgates, like if you have a deck in the game that plays Floodgates or like plays like traps in general, if people are not prepared for them, they will be caught off guard, and that is like the main strategy that kind of keeps them afloat. Is the surprise factor. If people are more prepared for them, then trap decks are not going to do as well because they are less powerful than non-trap decks. So like again, Branded Labyrinth, they're still really good decks. They're still really powerful. But if you compare them to like what happened to Vegas to what happened now at the 250th, people are respecting those strategies a lot more, which means they did way less significant at their success. Now I want to talk about rogue decks in general. As you guys can see here, I have a lot of plethora of different decks. These are not all the decks that have been covered. These are not all the decks that have topped. There are probably even more strategies that I probably are not familiar with at the time of this recording, but I will talk about a few of them that I noticed. I'll talk about Mathmech. This deck made top 16 at both London and LA. I don't know about Bogota, but this is the reason I'm talking about Mathmech is because this is like the third most powerful strategy that came out of Power of the Elements. Sprite and Tier Elements were like the first two, and this was like contention for third place. When Mathmech Circular got revealed as a card, it was really powerful. People were respecting Mathmech a lot. When this card arrived at Master Duel, people were respecting the strategy a lot, and was by a short lapse for a short time period, like one of the best strategies in the game until Sprite came along. So it having good success at multiple events kinda is warranted because it's a deck that can play a lot of hand traps. It can play against a lot of hand traps. It's a deck that can easily OTK. It's a deck that can play cards like this one, like Shadows to Floodgates. Like it's a deck that can play that. It's a deck that can summon like really powerful monsters. It's a deck that can generate a lot of advantage. Yeah, it's pretty cool that we have a Cybers strategy in the game that kinda does well. Speaking of Cybers, I want to talk about Format Skipper for a second. Shout out to Noah Bagelman. There's a deck profile running around. They call it FTK. It's not really an FTK. It's pretty much just a Mathmech endboard deck. I really liked it. It's really cool. If you've been following my channel a lot, you know that I'm a huge advocate for Scareclaw, and I really like this strategy. But using Format Skipper to get to like your Scareclaw line is something that it was unheard of for me. I was not familiar with this strategy, and it's really cool. Like it kind of it's kind of cool that you see people make creative deck building and have really made like a really nice level of success because of the surprise factor. It kind of shows you that this game has a lot of cards in its pool, and if you are knowledgeable enough and learn about many strategies in the game and a lot of intricacies between strategies, you will get rewarded for it. Like if you guys haven't seen it, it was the round 10 feature match of YCS London. That got Noah Bagelman, like he performed the combo really beautifully. It kind of showcased the strategy. It showed how powerful and effective it was. Another strategy I want to talk about that was presented at London was Super Heavy Samurai. Like the reason I want to talk about Super Heavy Samurai is because if you guys are already familiar, we're getting more support for Super Heavy Samurai in Cyberstorm Access. And the thing about it is these cards are really strong. Like these cards are really powerful. Like once we receive a bunch of these cards, the deck will have a lot of more significant showing. The deck is okay right now. It's not as powerful, but the fact that it took a game out of a feature match and they pretty much won against Kashtira, kind of tells you like it's really good for players that really want to play this deck in the future, because now you have a prelude of what the deck can look like and what cards are integral to the strategy if you want to play this deck in the future. So yeah, that was pretty cool, pretty significant showing. I'd say like once the Cyberstorm Access comes around, you will see this deck, like you will see this strategy. Like it will be as powerful as like the current strategies we have right now, like Runic, Sprite, and Kashtira. So be on the lookout. I already talked about Fur Hire. Shouts to Dinkabui. He got to top 4, playing a Runic Sprite variant of this. The Fur Hire cards are really strong. Like some of them feel like custom cards. Like let's read Rex for example. Like this is a Searcher. This is a Reborn. As a quick effect during either player's turn. Like the cards that you grab with it are pretty much extenders. Like you have a Reborn, you have a Transmodify, you have Donner that can bring back multiple monsters. It's also removal. You have a card that like draws you a lot of cards, and if you pair it with Runics, like a hand of 1 card can become 7 cards in just 1 turn. Like it's crazy. It feels like a custom archetype at this point. So I felt like that was really cool to see. Let's talk about Flunderies. This made top 4 of YCS LA. What's really cool is the pilot of the deck, Jacob. He played without an extra deck. That was very smart deck building. That was like pretty much like him being rewarded for knowing the meta game. Like they felt like Double Losses the Mind Hacker was a really powerful card to warrant its deck building around, and it proved a lot of success because it got to top 4. So that means he probably faced a bunch of Kashtira players, and Kashtira players were pretty much having a dead card in their extra deck, and the loss of a win condition just because they faced a deck that pretty much was prepared for it. Like a lot of people wrote this deck off because of the banning of Barrier Statue. I feel like the thing about Flunderies is it's a deck that once its engine gets rolling, it's really hard to stop. Like this deck recurs a lot of advantage. It plays around floodgates. You do not lose to Gimmick Puppet Branding Expulsion combo with this deck. The deck has consistency issues, especially if you play without an extra deck. But I feel like the power and the ability and the oppressive nuances the deck has warrants its success, despite its shortcomings. Let's talk about Rika. This deck topped both in London and it topped in LA. I don't know about Bogota. I'll have to check the results of Bogota later on. By the time of this recording, but this deck has been doing a lot of success as of late. I feel like Rikas in general, like, just have really powerful cards. Like you have a card that pretty much turns your opponent's resources against you. You have a searchable card that can negate monsters. You have like really oppressive cards that can like generate a lot of advantage. The thing about Rika is it's the same thing as Flunderies. It's a deck that once it gets its ball rolling, it's really hard to stop. Um, it's another deck that can play this card, which is really important. It's a deck that can play a lot of non-engine as well. It's a card it's an engine in the game that pretty much is as good going second as it is going first. So if you're not prepared for this, you're going to lose. The really cool thing about the top 8 deck profile is that they were not playing the Sonavalon engine, which kind of tells you that you don't need Sonavalons to play this deck. Plant monsters in the game are a lot. We have a lot of plant cards, 4, 8, 12. If we take all these rows, we're talking about over 200 cards that kind of works with plants. You have a lot of them, and some of them are really powerful. Shoutouts to Red Rose Dragon. Yeah, the guy was playing this, the guy was playing this, the guy was playing this as well. There are cards in the game we still don't have that actually support plant monsters as well. It was pretty cool to see plants in general as a strategy just doing well. I want to talk about tournaments. This topped in LA. It had a feature match in Top Cut, and it won its match, and it won against Naturia Runic, which is again a deck that made it to the finals multiple times. So this kind of tells you that despite the really heavy hits on tier limits, and despite it being a really bad deck against Kashtira, the deck can still do well if you have proper deck building, you have proper tools. Despite the cards being limited, the Ichizu cards are still really good. These cards are still really powerful. If you resolve these cards, they swing the tempo of the game. If you resolve them along tier elements, it's pretty much a blowout. You have room for non-engine as well, because of the limited deck space that you have. You have a lot of room for creativity. For those people unfamiliar, tier elements is still doing actually something in the OCG, despite it being hit as hard as it was in the TCG. So if that doesn't tell you enough, it kind of tells you that tier elements is still around as a strategy. I'll talk about Sky Striker. This had a feature match in LA. It was on the second to last final round of Swiss, and it won its match. So Sky Striker, I feel, is a very adaptive deck. I feel once we get cards like Azalea, once we get Azalea, we're probably gonna see this deck more. Maybe in the TCG they might do the same thing as they did in the OCG, and just bring Engage to multiple copies. It's really hard. It's very soon to tell if that would be the case, but if this card ever goes to more than one, you will see this deck. I'm telling you right now, you will see this deck, because I don't feel this guy's the biggest issue of Sky Strikers right now is the format. It's pretty much it's not that strong versus Kashtira. Runic is a very strong engine as compared to Sky Striker as an engine. However, you who's to tell you that you cannot pair Runics alongside Sky Strikers? I've seen it happen. I think it's not unorthodox. So yeah, like you, it was really nice to see Sky Striker showing like some level of play. I already spoke about Labyrinth. I already spoke about Branded. Let's talk about tech cards. As you guys already know, YCS London was won with participation of Kurgara. So this card is probably going to be seen a bit more. If not, you will see Kashtira players preparing for this card a bit more than it is right now. Ash Blossom was seen everywhere. I think like it's kind of ironic because if you see my deck profiles, you probably already know I don't play Ash Blossom in any of my decks. However, I think that if you're going to a major event or you're going to play at a big tournament, you are going to see this card, or you should be playing this card. Like, if I were to play at a major event, like the 250 YCS or like YCS Philadelphia later in the year, I don't think I will play a deck without either A, playing this card, or B, playing around this card. Let's talk about Nibiru. So there's been this discussion running around about how people are underlooking / overlooking Nibiru and how people were more prepared for it or less prepared for it. I think this card is very warranted in your deck. Not as high as Ash Blossom, but at a degree that you should be playing around or for this card. This card has seen like multiple showings. Like I think every deck that made it to the finals of each event, like each YCS, played this card. I think this is probably going to be like one of the most popular board breaking cards that you've seen in the format, like in the events as well. Evenly Matched was everywhere. I don't think I need to talk about this card. Like, this card was seen a lot. Book of Moon, another really popular card. This card was played in a lot of decks. It was even played in the plant deck that topped 8 in LA. So it kind of shows you how much people are valuating and respecting this card again. If you're like me and played the game for like before this card got limited back in the day, you will understand like this card's power at some degree. One card that people are picking up on now, but they have not before, was Dark Ruler No More. I think after Sprite's success in Peru, a lot of people just gravitated towards playing this card because they pretty much arrived at the conclusion that if you're playing against a lot of combo strategies similar to Sprite, you should be playing a card that warrants like helping you break boards. One pair of cards that I saw over the weekend, and I'm really happy to see, was Talents and Thrust at multiple copies in the main deck. Like, I am very surprised that a lot of people did not pick up on this card. Like, for the longest time, people were saying this card was very mediocre. We're saying that this card was not going to do well. Shout out to the 3 people that made it to top 16 / top 8 of LA. Like, I'm talking about Po Jang and Jojo SMR. They played this in their Kashtira list. Also, the Flute player that made it top 4 played both copies, like both cards on his list as well in the main deck. Their theory and their logic was board these cards do a higher function than cards that do 1-for-1 trades, and I highly agreed. For the longest time, if you've seen my a few of my deck profiles, you know I was very high on these cards, and I'm glad that to see that it had actual success. But yeah, there's a lot more I want to cover, but I think we're at the 30-minute mark. I think this is like a good amount of time to explain or debrief what happened at this event. Does this 3 YCSs shape the format? I'd say to a short degree it will. People are more aware of the problems of the format now than they was before, because we've had more tournament success with different strategies. I think we've arrived at the conclusion that this is a very open format. There's a lot of strategies that are very good and they could be played. The really big issue or tackling task when it comes to the format in general is just proper deck building. It's not because of the strategy you want to pick up, it's more about the cards you want to play for your matchups, because we have a lot of different matchups, we have a lot of different variety, but at the same time we have cards that are very oppressive in the game that if you don't respect them, you will get blown out by them. Shoutouts to Branded Expulsion. And shoutouts to Mindhacker. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this type of video. Stay tuned, more videos involving this format coming soon.